What if productivity advice just wasn't written for you? I mean, that is a real question, because maybe you've watched the same piece of advice transform someone else's business or life and then fall apart in your hands in a week. And before you leave, flip it around. Somewhere out there, something that's pretty effortless for you is an absolute wall for a colleague who's every bit as smart and every bit as hardworking. Same advice, wildly different results. That's what we're breaking down today. Productivity advice is written for an imagined person with a specific set of struggles and a specific set of privileges. When someone's mix doesn't match, the advice fails them. And they almost always blame themselves, and I call this productivity privilege. And I'll be honest right up front, I have it too. I'm going to give you a couple of real examples, including one that cost me years before I saw it. By the end of this video, you'll know why following someone else's step-by-step kept failing you, and you'll have a 5-question advice filter that finds the part worth keeping, so you can rewrite it for your brain instead of throwing the entire thing away. And there's also a free friction map waiting in the description, because research consistently finds a reason this keeps happening. And it has a lot less to do with discipline, willpower, motivation, all that, than you've been told. If we're new to each other, hi, I'm Janae, and this is Productivity Stacks, and we are an evidence-based channel for freelancers and small business owners. We help you work with your brain, not against it. Subscribe if that sounds useful. Every piece of productivity advice you've ever gotten, the author pictured someone. They had someone in mind, someone with a certain amount of energy, an amount of focus, a certain bank account, a certain brain. Productivity privilege is the gap between that imagined person and you. Now, one thing before we go further, privilege is a big word, and some of it, money, health, race, is way bigger than this channel. And I am not the person to lecture anybody on that. This video is about one specific layer, the assumption baked into productivity advice, and what to do when you don't match that assumption. And I can tell you a lot about that gap because I've lived on both sides of it, and I know so many people who've been in this situation. In 2012, I had PTSD. I'm not gonna get into what caused it and all of that, it's a different story. What matters here is the math. That PTSD left me with about 4 hours of genuine focus time. 4 hours total for the entire day for everything in my business that I needed to do. And I would say standard productivity advice assumes a brain with 12 hours of usable time, maybe 10, at least 8, right? And mine gave me 4. So following that advice anyway didn't make me more productive. It made me fail at a system built for somebody else and then blame myself for that failure. Today, I can work a full day. I recovered slowly with some amazing help. Same me, same work ethic, same ambition. The only thing that changed was that capacity I didn't really earn, and I didn't lack on purpose either. That's productivity privilege. I didn't have it, kind of had the opposite, and now I mostly do. And neither version of me necessarily deserved credit or blame for it. So here's a flag you can start to use today. Anytime some advice contains the word just batch it, just automate it, just post consistently. That word is marking the exact spot where the author's privilege is hiding. So just means this basically costs me nothing, but it might cost you plenty. So circle it, put a pin in it. It's coming back when we run the filter, because there's real research on what happens when a task costs you more than it costs the person the advice was written for. So why does this happen? Why does advice that's written for somebody else fail necessarily? One word, friction. Every task has 2 costs: the time it takes to do it, which is what productivity advice generally talks about and focuses on. But there's also bandwidth cost, which productivity advice often assumes is 0. Bandwidth is everything that task drains out of you besides the time. The dread before it, the anxiety during it, the worry maybe after it. When somebody says, oh, just set up a bookkeeping system, it only takes an afternoon. They're quoting you the price they paid. If it just took them an afternoon because they had no issues and it cost them 0 bandwidth, then yeah, just set it up. No big deal, just set it up. But that's not everybody. And the research here is really clear. A major meta-analysis found how aversive a task feels is a strong, consistent predictor of whether we put it off. And yeah, okay, that same study did find that self-discipline matters too. I'm not disputing that, not saying that discipline is 0. The point is what productivity advice often leaves out. How a task feels predicts procrastination in its own right. And research links anxiety to poor working memory, so the mental bandwidth that you'd otherwise be using for the task itself. So a high friction task doesn't just get delayed. When you finally do it, you're doing it with less brain. And for me, that task was bookkeeping. I have financial trauma. I'm not gonna get into the details there. That won't help you. And numbers have never really been my strong suit either, if I'm being honest, even without that. So I would procrastinate as long as possible. And then when I finally sat down to do it, my anxiety about making a mistake was so high that I'd go over the numbers again and again, and even that didn't seem like enough. This is a task that advice givers might budget an afternoon for, but I'm gonna tell you how long it was taking me. So pause the video and just guess what it was actually costing every freaking month. Tens of hours every single month. I resisted hiring a bookkeeper for years. When I finally did, her cost was the equivalent of about 2 hours of my time. And just so we're clear, that's because she was that much better and faster at it. So it didn't take her that long at all. So already financially, that was awesome. 2 hours to buy back tens as a business decision. It was embarrassing how obvious it was and how long it took me. And of course, I told myself, business decision, I was buying time. But I was actually wrong about what I was buying. And I'm going to show you what I mean in a second, because the time was actually the smaller part of what I got back. The moment that bookkeeping stopped being something that I had to think about, I got this freaking flood of bandwidth. So the background hum of worrying about when I'd do the books, the invoicing, whether I'd made a mistake, it just shut off. And I could check my numbers every month without spiraling because the bookkeeper had done it correctly. And tax time became reviewing what she sent me instead of a huge undertaking. Plus, I was over here trying to do an invoice after I would do a billable project, which meant that huge stressor was just happening all the freaking time. And so that wasn't an improvement over my procrastinate practically infinitely either. So both of them were not working. So after I get this going, same task, same business, I just stopped paying for this bandwidth currency that was already really low. I actually have an entire video on tracking your bandwidth, how to set all that up. And if that's really hitting for you and that's really speaking to you, that deep dive is linked in the description below. So when a system keeps failing, check what it's actually costing you before you conclude that something's just wrong with you. Now, the fix is coming up in just a bit, and everything we've covered so far is about to turn into something that you can really use. The fix is a rule I use with every client. Diagnose first, prescribe second. So a client with financial trauma doesn't have a software problem. A client with social anxiety experiences, just post on LinkedIn 3 times a week as a prescription that's written for someone else's nervous system. Here's the thing. I said you're not broken, you're not, but the advice isn't necessarily broken either. The diagnosis just never happened. And here's the part that I really, really want you to hear. Most productivity advice is actually a decent mechanism just wrapped in packaging for someone else. The mechanism is what the advice actually accomplishes. And the packaging is that step-by-step that might be written for the author's friction, which might be 0, and yours might be definitely not 0. They don't have to come together. So pick one piece of advice that failed you and let's run it through the advice filter. It's going to be 5 questions. 1 is, who is this written for? What struggle does it assume that you don't have? Number 2, where's that word just? Told you it was coming back. Find that just, and you've found the step that cost the author nothing, that they really got for free. 3, what does step 1 cost you in bandwidth? Not in time. Really think about that. Number 4, did it fail in execution or did it fail at the starting line, like right before you ever got started? Did you just put it off and put it off and put it off? If that's what happens, that's okay. That's not a laziness signal. Just you need to name it and realize that. Number 5, and this is going to be the whole point. What is the mechanism that's underneath? What is this advice actually trying to accomplish? So really keep that part and really think about it. We're going to rewrite the packaging for your friction. So for me, the mechanism of just do your bookkeeping was never about a spreadsheet versus a software. It was, I just need to know my numbers and stay ready for taxes. So I kept that mechanism and I rewrote the packaging in 2 words. In this case, it was hire someone. And I can already hear some of you, must be nice. Yeah, just hire someone, just run out, just pay the money and hire someone. Hiring help is its own productivity privilege. I get that. That's called money. And I did not always have the ability to do that either. So when hiring is not on the table, the move that replaces it is what I call outsourcing to yourself. So this is going to be systems, checklists, and the goal is going to be creating distance between you and that thing. But step 1 is figuring out diagnosis, right? What is the thing? And then step 2 is prescribing. Outsourcing to yourself is a really good option. We're going to talk about some of the other ones in this video. And I'm actually making an entire video about outsourcing to yourself. And when it's live, that will be linked as well. And you can actually run this friction situation on your whole business and not just one piece of advice. So make sure you grab that free friction map in the description. And it's going to show you where the piece of advice will break before you spend a month on it or freaking years like I did. I spent so long failing at systems that were just never built for me or my brain. First with 4 hours of focus a day, this bookkeeping task that cost me freaking ridiculous amounts of time. So yes, productivity advice has a privilege problem, but now you can see it coming and you don't have to throw the whole thing away when it shows up. You're gonna keep the mechanism, just rewrite the packaging, rewrite the step-by-step for you. Figure out what it's trying to do and then think through it for you. That's the filter. So I wanna hear it. What is a piece of advice that you rewrote to fit your own brain? And what did your version look like? Drop it in the comments. I wanna see your rewrites. Let's get this done.